So our market is the grass aids go to the horse industry all across the United States. We even sell some to Saudi Arabia, EUA, and so on. So you just have to make good hay. It has to be green so that they want it. More people buy on color, more value. If it's not green, we don't want it. Alfalfa goes to the California dairies. We need to try to keep the TDN in the 55 or below range to satisfy them and cut back so much on their feeding. They're on feeding 6 or 8 pounds, or probably 4 or 5 pounds of alfalfa now instead of they used to feed 10 or 12. And so they want that hay to be high test, high protein hay. So we try to make that hay to fit their market. Mostly big bales now, and so we do 3x4s or 4x4s to make them happy because they don't like to cut strings on small bales. Just make good hay and they'll come and they usually stay happy and make nice green hay.
Okay, back down here. Y'all, who's your customer and how do you get them happy?
Ours has really changed market. When we first started, it was going 90% of our day export. Started in 76, and up until about 2002, they would take every good cube we could produce, and then the bale hay, the double compressed bale, started to eat into that market. And so the last 20 years has changed, and we decided to diversify, and so we still export some hay to Taiwan to Japan, but that's been a challenge this last year to get containers and those things. But that's a different story. But anyway, we decided to focus on retail, and that's our biggest single market now, is the retail market or horse market. And we been buying a few good things. Our latest thing, we mixed 40-60 alfalfa three-way, and that's proven to be a pretty popular horse cube, and probably continue to work on that market. But the thing that always said, the customer getting it, so you need to produce what they want, what they want to look.
First. That's right. Okay. Maybe if I don't touch it, it works. We have a real diverse market. I started selling hay to people about 35, 20 years ago, and started with the horse market. So locally, our horse market is the best. But we also sell to dairies. I've got a dairy in California that takes about 1,500 ton a year, and I've worked with him for about 15 years now. I know what he wants, so if I can't produce it, I can find it for him. Like I said before, we've got 2 customers in Arkansas. One of those customers buys hay for different racetracks. We've sent hay clear to Delaware before. We've sent hay to Florida before. I've sold hay into Texas before. Most of this is the horse market. I have sent hay to a dairy in Texas one time. I had a market in New Mexico. But we supply hay to just about every market you can imagine, including dairy goats. And that's a real specific market. If you think goats will eat anything, try selling anything to a dairy goat farmer, because they won't buy just anything. It has to be the most beautiful hay you can imagine. Test the highest quality you can get, and then the goats will eat it and produce milk on it. So, like I said, we've got a real diverse market. One of the things that we focused on is customer service. Now, Kai is at the farm most all the time, so if somebody calls on the phone, they used to call me or my son, but now they just call him and say, can we come get Bell? Hey, I'll be here and I'll load it. And so he's been able to do that customer service. He's also started a little program where if they're not too far away, he'll throw a couple of bales on the flatbed truck, take them over and kick them off and charge them a little bit for the delivery. It's all about service. And so it works for them. We had some horse customers one day say, well, what about hay cubes? Can you get us any hay cubes? Well, I think we can. I've known Craig for many years. And I called Craig and I said, can I buy some hay cubes? Well, I don't know. I think we got a few extra we can sell you. So now we're buying hay cubes from Craig, both straight alfalfa and mixed alfalfa with the freeway, and the horse customers love them. And so we have become a hay store, if you will. That lady pulled in one day and she said, I need to buy some hay from horses. And I said, what do you want? I don't know, what have you got? And I said, let's go shopping. So I took her and showed her all of the different varieties of hay that we had, from premium alfalfa to a lower quality alfalfa, to a straight grass, to grass alfalfa mix, to a teff grass, to a fall freeway and a spring freeway. And she said, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was going to Walmart today. So we try to provide a service so anyone who pulls in or calls and wants hay, we have what they want.
That's awesome. All right, we're gonna stay with you again. So now at your operation, do you focus on yield or quality? And how do you match those goals in your practice?
Well, for what we do, we try and go for horse quality, including the yield, because horses don't care about the real quality of it. I talked to a veterinary friend of mine one time. He said, most people feed their horses too high a quality alfalfa, but you'll get different horse customers, and the women are the hardest to please because they'll say, I've got to have the very best alfalfa you've got. And the husband comes and says, I don't know, what did my wife buy last time? And so the men don't really know or don't care, but you have to please the women. So that's why we have a different variety of hay. And we want to go for the best yield we can, but not scrimp on the quality.
That's an interesting question. We probably focus on yield, but quality kind of plays into that because of these new varieties of hay with winter hardiness anyway, that new hay comes back so fast that we don't want it to get too old and rank because it takes too long to dry. We want to get it off in 4 or 5 days at the most because of the regrowth is coming back so fast. So we actually cut when we see the regrowth start out in the ground. We cut so that we can get it off, so that we're not running over the next crop because we found that is detrimental to our yield. So.
All right, thank you. All right, what about you?
So on the alfalfa, I'd rather grow 55 TDM California modified test than anything else because it's good enough for the dairy hay. Protein's usually good enough, and it gives you max 1 tons. Because if you grow 58 test hay, you'll cut 3/4 of a ton per acre, and if you grow 55 ton hay or 55 test hay, you'll grow 2 1/4 tons is what makes you money. So that on the alfalfa, we try to do 55 or better most of the time. On the grass hay, you cut it. We need to cut twice a year, so we cut towards the 1st of July, just because it's still got a lot of filler. If you start getting this coloration at the bottom, it affects your price quite a bit. And so grass hay, you cut for color, the alfalfa hay you cut for tons. That will still make the California grade or the dairy grade hay.
I would echo that, the saying that there's a sweet spot in that test where you don't give up the yield for the test. That said, I think for each of you, you've got to find that spot where it fits your market as who the buyer is. For us on our farm, excuse me, we're doing some interesting things. We're actually blending some seed using different varieties. As I mentioned earlier, our soils are so tough and they vary throughout each pivot, the soils may vary 3 times, different areas of that soil. We have a really new farm. That farm was sagebrush in 2014, so we're actually, some of our fields are in the first rotation. And so we're now looking at yield, so tonnage is our game, but we also want to cut it soon enough that we don't go backwards in that plant that we're watering and fertilizing on a plant that's finished growing. So we try to catch those tons while that plant is just reaching its peak in growth. And we're probably, our tests are coming out in that, 53.5 to 55 kind of hay, and that's what we're feeding to lean calves and maternity cattle. And so, so that's kind of what we do, and we're trying to extend stand life. That's another really important thing to us, is that we yield the stand life. Our quality can be, we don't mind average quality hay there. And then with our steamer, that makes the bales really hold together and gives us a very rapid baling scenario. We bale all day with those, so it helps us with the recovery issue. We can get that hay off the field quicker because we're not waiting on big regions. Get the hay bale, get off before the regrowth starts back. And then of course we have cattle traffic. We raise our hay fields, so our stands in Alfalfa up to cattle traffic. So by mixing a blend of seeds, different varieties of alfalfa within the plant has really helped us to have some diversity in the field and still keep our good side.
Okay, so since you just touched on that, I'm going to ask you this question next. How do you manage your harvest to keep your stand healthy? What pieces of planting or harvesting equipment have made a major impact on your farm?
Yeah, so weight's always a problem. Compaction is always an issue. Cattle grazing on our hay fields is always an issue. And so I think that's probably the thing we probably struggle with the most is stand life because of, just traffic on the fields. And some of these newer varieties aren't quite designed for cattle traffic and a lot of heavy equipment. So, so we work really hard when we're on the fields with the equipment. We try to get off the field with heavy load trucks or with loaders as much as we can. We try not to drive on the same places twice. If we are using field roads, we try to get off the edge of the field and go around with it. Because we do stack our hay with trucks. We accumulate our hay in layer and we use semi-trucks and loaders to stack our hay. So we have some of those challenges with compaction, but managing the regrowth is key. We try to use a swapper that covers the ground, that'll cut nicely and cover the ground quickly, and then we try to get it baled and stacked as quickly as we can, get off the field, get water back on, so that we can get back.
All right, Mr. Jim, same question. How do you manage your harvest to keep your stand healthy?
So we shut the pivot off probably 2 to 3 days prior to cutting to try to surface out a little bit so we don't get too much compaction from the swapper baler. We've gone to big balers now, so we put 2 windrows together. Big balers really, it makes the workday manageable. I mean, there's only 2 guys that try to put up 900 acres of hay. And, so they start cutting, a few days later they rake, a couple days later they start baling and pick it up with a mill stack or a drill bit. But we try to get it off as quick as we can, get the water back on it. But we do let it dry down pretty good so we don't compact the soil with the machine. Just and go to the best variety you can buy. I don't think you can ever spend too much money on seed, except I don't know if the Roundup or Wanta fit my program. Pretty much just standard varieties. We've actually gone to a hybrid, last year, put in and see how that works. we don't do the Roundup Ready because to keep the weeds out, you have to spray during the summer after that. And our major weed problem is a Reno bluegrass that we have to get rid of at the alfalfa, so it's not a continuity. So, but we never get the opportunity to let the bluegrass come back strong enough to be able to spray before we have to tromp down the alfalfa to spray. So we don't do that Roundup Ready stuff.
Okay, now back over here, y'all have any advice on managing your harvest to keep your stand healthy?
We just, on a fairly fast rotation, I guess we rotate 5 to 6 years. And, as far as water and cutting first crop, in our country, that dry, hot June, you can take it off. And 2 days later, you can cut it. 3 to 4 days later, you can chop it. You got the water back on the weed cut. But the new GPS driven swathers, the windrows are all end up in the same place, and so compaction becomes a problem. I think that's one of the reasons we found that rotating often helps us there.
Sounds like I'm the only one on this panel that has flood irrigation, so we try and keep our ground dry enough when we go to harvest that we don't have the compaction problem. We probably are overkill on our harvesting equipment. Nothing that we have on our farm is over 4 years old. And so we're able to go in and harvest and get back off and get the water right back on it. So that's a positive thing for us. One of the things that we've done the last few years, we bought a new cedar, and it's a Great Plains cedar. It doesn't have the alfalfa box on it, it's just got a big box, but we started planting our alfalfa through that big box. And somebody about 3 years ago said, if you'll plant that half rate, 2 different directions. Now I understand if you're planting 3,000 acres, that's a lot. But we started planting 2 different directions, and our stand is phenomenal. And it lasts longer, and it's thicker, and it's healthier, and you don't have that gap between the plants. And so we think that's probably one of the best things that we've done is just plant in both directions so we get a better stand.
All right, thank you. We've got about 2 minutes left for this, so now we're going to take it to the audience, see if y'all have any questions. Where we have. All right, right over here. And I'll go ahead, I'll repeat her question so our live viewers can hear it before I'll answer, okay?
Your climate sounds like you probably get cuttings of your alfalfa. And none of you has mentioned anything about fertility. Do any fertility in between cuttings? Do you remain just fine slug or fertilizer blend the initial season? None of you has mentioned that. I was kind of curious.
Okay, her question is about fertility in between cuttings.
I'd like to answer that because on a good year, we can get almost 5 crops. Like last year, about half of our acres, we got 5 cuttings on. And we tried something new. Our fertilizer dealer has been trying to get us to do this for years, but we've just been stubborn. And it's a management thing. But we put half of our fertilizer on either in the fall or in the spring. Last fall, we put it on half the acres. This spring, we put it on the other half the acres when we got a break in the weather. But then we went in 2 different times. Like after second crop, we'll go in and spray a foliar application on, and again after third crop. And we've seen phenomenal difference in that. Now, don't ask me what's in there, because I can't tell you. But my fertilizer guys knows what it is. But we've seen phenomenal results with that, especially in older stands.
I'll jump on that as well. So on our farm, we're pivot irrigated, so everything is spoon fed to the plant. We do a lot of foliar applications through pivot. We use an acid-based fertilizer simply because we have high pH soils, and so our plants sometimes would struggle. One of the other things that we do that's pretty unique, and it's kind of, we carbon bond, so we chelate our nutrient prior to going out. And then we also blend a micro package that goes with that to the soil to help soil aeration and plant uptake of those nutrients. And it's So it's kind of a little bit of a mad scientist program around there a little bit, but we have to be a little bit careful with our acid. We check the pH in our waters and it's right all the time. But if you can get your fertilizer to a pH of 5, the plant will really accept it through foliar intake. The other thing we found is we have to really watch when it's hot. We'll miss, the plants will actually go into shutdown, so we'll have to leave it closed. So if we can water as much in the cool times, and that doesn't always happen, but we try to get that done. But that carbon chelation, using a foliage and humic acid blend in our fertilizers has really helped. And we've had really good success with that. But I really like the foliar feeding. Again, the acid is we like the acid, but I would warn everyone to be careful with that. It's very manageable, but you do have to kind of watch it. So we fertilize during the entire growing season. There's an application going on, and we're able to produce somewhere around 6 ton hay, and we're doing that in 3 crops.
So on personal passion, I put dry fertilizer on in the fall, put a couple 100 pounds of 1152, 100 pounds of sulfur, and 100 pounds of potash. And that's our only fertilizer program in the alfalfa. On the Timothy, it takes quite a bit of nitrogen. We'll put 100 units of nitrogen on the last week of April. And then we will supplement that with a little bit of UN32. If we see the plant starting to stall a little bit, we'll throw another 6 or 8 units of nitrogen onto the pivot. We might do that 2 times before the 1st of July. Second crop is grown with another 100 units of ammonium sulfate. And we put that on as soon as we get that one, we get about to take the first crop off. That's the program for, well, we do the phosphate on the grass hay in the fall because everything that grows underground is from phosphate, everything above ground is nitrogen.
One last note there. If you are in high pH soils, remember too, your alfalfa plants have a hard time fixing nitrogen when you're over about 8.2 to 8.4. Your plants struggle to fix nitrogen. So we found by adding just a touch of nitrogen in our alfalfa blend, we don't want to spoil that plant, but we do know that they're struggling to fix nitrogen. And so we don't think your alfalfa needs nitrogen. It's the only reason is because it makes its own. But if it can't make it, you got to help it. So that if you have really high pH soils, just maybe keep that in mind too.
Thanks, Dawn. Okay, y'all got any more questions out there?
Just on the fertilizer side, we're like, we just put 1152 on the fall, but every year, every rotation, we rotate, we manure the field, so that's basically our program.
Okay, right back here.
Are you guys concerned that the cure for high prices is high prices?
Are y'all concerned that the cure for high prices is high prices?
That's a real interesting question. I've had a lot of people ask me, what's the price of hay going to be this year? My answer to that is, what's changed? If you don't have the water in our country and you don't have any carryover, where can the price go? Everything's going up. Fertilizer's going up. Equipment prices are astronomical. Chemical prices are out of sight. Fuel prices, everything's going up. So tell me how, as a hay grower, I can lower my prices and survive. I agree that the price is too high. But what are you going to do about it? There's nothing out there to buy. Go try and buy hay today. That's the challenge.
To just follow up with that, people think we're making a lot of money, but we did probably make pretty good money this fall and winter because the prices are high, but our input prices are all decent dollar more than it was a year ago. We use a lot of diesel, but fertilizer is way outside, so this next year not these higher prices, we're better to help us stay in business.
Just one more comment, the cattlemen we're selling hay to have said to us this year, we can do this, but we can only do this for 1 year. Now, if the cattle prices go up like the forecast says it will, then they can do it for another year. I wish I had the answer. I wish I had a crystal ball, but nobody knows. But with the price of everything going up, we can't expect the price of alfalfa.
The answer to your question is yes. I'm concerned that high prices is the answer to high prices. I don't know if it's sustainable. I think at some point this market's going to balance again. And I think as growers and producers, we've got to be planning for that balance. I think getting over leverage right now would be a mistake. I think we have an opportunity to make some money and raffle some cash, but this inflationary deal and the politics of the world events that are going on, I think this thing's going to find a balance. And we as producers don't want to get caught behind that anymore, I think. So I don't know the answer either, but yeah, concerned.
So I make a report every time I get a call from Josh Collin, who does the weight report. He called me 2 weeks ago and said a guy in southern Utah committed 7,000 ton 55 or better hay at $270 a grade. So I don't expect this year to be any different. It's going to be stronger than it was last year. And California is not going to grow any alfalfa because the cotton price currently is $3.25 per pima, and they will put all their water on cotton and not much on alfalfa. So I expect the California market to be very strong on demand. It's not to grow much of drop.
All right, I think we may have time for one more quick question.
My question, sorry, was for Kim again. I'm curious about, so it sounds like you do some water conditioning. I assume you use phosphoric acid, or else you're saying that you use phosphoric acid in your foliar, which I'm sure you do. Everybody who's using a foliar is going to be using that. But I'm just saying that I can't tell whether you treat your water before it hits the field in order to adjust that to pH, or do you answer?
Okay. So the answer is, so the fertilizer is acid. The nitrogen, the phos, it's a liquid acid. It comes to me at a pH of about 0.8 to 1. And then I blend the organics, the humics, the fulvics, and the biology, and that blend is about a 4 pH. So that brings about 4.8 pH, but that brings my pH up to probably a 3 in the chelated nutrient. So that is now a carbon bonded nutrient. And then as that goes into a 7 pH water, we're applying through the pivot somewhere between 6.5 pH and 7. So yes, the water's getting conditioned by the blend we're using. And then we also, I forgot to mention, we also apply micronutrients as needed. I actually do a tissue sample between every crop, or at every crop, and then we adjust our fertilizer ration for the next crop. Because we are forward feeding, we can be pretty agile, pretty nimble in what our plant requirements are and what they need. So yes is the answer to your question. We are conditioning water, but we're doing it through our fertilizer.
All right. Thank you, guys. Are you all going to stick with us the rest of the day? Okay, if y'all have any more questions, I'm sure you can catch up during our lunch break or any of our breaks today. So I'm sure they'll be happy to help you with any other questions y'all may have. So thank you all so much. And go join me in a round of applause for